Hi everyone and welcome back in new video. Over the past few days I have been thoroughly testing the technical features of the Ryzen 7 9800X3D, studying the voltage, frequency curve, VDDC or underscore sock voltage, infinity fabric, and precision boost overdrive technology with all the tools it makes available. Once these concepts were taken on board, I dedicated myself to field testing everything I had learned and, having as a fixed point, the fact of not aggressively affecting the factory-imposed specifications from AMD, I optimized the various BIOS parameters until I extracted an overall performance well beyond all expectations. But now let's get into the BIOS of my Asrock X870e Nova Wi-Fi, where I will show you my overclocking strategy, leaving the very first parameters that populate the OC tweaker board unchanged. Let's focus on the DRAM frequency setting. A premise must be made here. By now, those of you who have been following me for a while know perfectly well how dear it is to me, when it comes to RAM frequency, to reach values close to or above 8,000 megatransfers per second. It is a fixation of mine. In the case of the Ryzen 9800X3D, however, and I would add unfortunately, this brings no real benefit other than a minimal gain in bandwidth that we can measure with IETA 6.4. At this point, to understand why this comes into play, AMD Infinity Fabric. Infinity Fabric is a super-fast interconnect developed by AMD to connect the core complex die with the input-output die, and other components inside and outside the system on a chip. Infinity Fabric is characterized by three basic elements. FCLK, Infinity Fabric Clock, which handles the speed at which the various elements of the SoC communicate with each other. UCLK, Unified Memory Controller Clock, which represents the clock at which the integrated memory controller communicates with our RAMs. And MCLK, Memory Clock, which is nothing more than the clock we set on our DDR5S. For example, if we set a speed of 6,400 megatransfers per second on our RAMs, then our MCLK will be 3,200 megatransfers per second, since DDR5S are characterized by the double data rate. In an ideal world, the ratio between these three elements should be 1:1:1, but this is not the case because just the way the architecture of the Ryzen 9000 is designed, the core complex die communicates with a certain speed, the input-output die with another speed, and the memory controller with an even different speed. This is a feature of AMD's chiplet engineering. In this context, the Infinity Fabric Clock could approach frequencies of about 3,000 megatransfers per second. However, these frequencies generate instability for all the reasons I explained above. So, let's go to the DRAM timing configuration folder and activate the XMP 6000 megatransfers per second profile. Why this frequency? Because AMD itself designates it as the sweet spot frequency. And to put it into the previous discussion, we will see a configuration where we will set UCLK equal to MCLK with a ratio of UCLK, FCLK and MCLK equal to 3000 stands for 1500 stands for 3000. Thus a much lower latency will be guaranteed than we will have with memories set at 8000 megatransfers per second and UCLK div1 mode equal to UCLK equals memlock divided by 2. This ratio blows all the advantage of operating at very high frequencies as can be done on Intel platforms because we insert more latency here. In conclusion, Infinity Fabric frequency set it to 2000 megatransfers per second, which is the sweet spot frequency to extract the maximum from the processor. Values such as 2067, 2133 and above only make synchronization between the various components of the SoC more difficult, which we will have to compensate for by resorting to higher voltages, currents and impedances to the detriment of achieving high and stable frequencies over a long period of time. With that said, let's move to DRAM frequency and set 6,400 megatransfers per second. At this point you need to play with the timings of your RAMs to extract extra performance. Here you can simply copy my timings if you want, otherwise this guide will become endless. Such tight memory timings need more voltage than what you set with the XMP profile, so let's proceed with VDO voltage at 1400 volts, DRAM VDD voltage at 1450 volts, and finally DRAM VDDQ voltage at 1450 volts. In the OC Tweaker tab, we are done. At this point let us take to the Advanced tab, and scroll down to the AMD Overclocking tab, where we will be shown a warning. We accept it, and a page full of specific folders will open in front of us to intervene in a wide variety of system on a chip parameters. For the purpose of this video we will only be interested in the Precision Boost Overdrive folder. We enter and make the following settings. On Precision Boost Overdrive we select Advanced. On PBO limits we leave it in Auto. In all the guides and the various videos on YouTube it is noted that motherboard is set, but based on all the tests I have done we only get a loss of performance. In fact, analyzing the CCX voltages and temperatures on the Winfo program I found 5 bar 10 millivolts more on current SVID. The temperatures are also about 2 to 3 degrees higher. This is not surprising because by setting PBO limits on motherboard all we are doing is ignoring the PPT, TDC and EDC limits set by AMD, thus providing more voltage for a specific frequency optimized in reverse in auto and more current, resulting in more heat. Therefore, set PBO limits to auto. Let's go ahead and scroll down the various parameters and completely ignore Precision Boost Overdrive Scaler CTRL. It is one more tool in the Precision Boost Overdrive technology, but should only be considered as a situational factor if we want to run our 9800X3D at frequencies close to 5700 MHz. Never should it be used in daily use because it allows very aggressive action on voltages and frequencies, especially with a factor of 10x. All of this will lead to very small increases in some benchmarks, but at the price we consciously accept to reduce the longevity and efficiency in providing us from our processor lasting efficiency over the years. So, avoid using scaling. Let's now take to the CPU Boost Clock Override folder and set Enable Positive. Let's go down below to Max CPU Boost Clock Override and set it to 200. It allows an extension of the frequency voltage curve without altering the factory cast behavior. For us overclockers this is a good thing. In this my optimization I will use in combination Curve Optimize and Curve Shaper to extract the maximum from the undervolt and shape the frequency voltage curve only where I want it. Next, in Curve Optimizer we set all cores. We go down to the all cores Curve Optimizer sign parameter and set negative. Finally on magnitude we set 15. On this aspect I want to make a brief point. Looking around on YouTube we see how this value is strongly associated with the silicon goodness of our CPU. This is partly true, but it must also be said that as in all overclocking processes we make micro adjustments in voltage and frequency in order to reach that famous sweet spot that gives us back more performance. Basically, again in an ideal world, we all want to have higher operating frequencies, lower voltages for that frequency, a good voltage drop such as to mitigate instability effects due to undershoot and overshoot and all at a lower than normal operating temperature. Nice. But not so, and compromise for us overclockers is a must. Anyway, based on the above my CPU is able to sustain a negative magnitude of 30 MV, but at the cost of a performance loss in Cinebench or 2-3 on the order of 1000 points. So, start at magnitude 30 and go down in steps 5 at a time until you get the maximum result in terms of performance and stability. As mentioned, in this video I used Curve Optimizer and Curve Shaper in combination. Curve Optimizer is divided into 5 regions: min frequency, low frequency, med frequency, high frequency and max frequency. Right on max frequency we'll enable max frequency, high temperature and take out 10 millivolts, which will go to shape the frequency voltage curve around 5415 MHz, strengthening our undervolt at that specific point. Spectacular guys! I love this processor and its architectural logic. Now if you have followed the video up to this point I invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and click the little bell to stay tuned for upcoming content.